The newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. 2 persons are reported missing and at least 40 houses were affected by the fire that raised an oil tanker near Delpan Bridge in Tondo yesterday. The fire reached 5th alarm before it was declared fire out at around 3 p.m. The Coast Guard says its Marine Environmental Protection Command had to use 6 booms to control the oil spill as firefighters worked to put out the flames at around 1 in the afternoon. They add that the cause of the fire is still unknown. Gabriela Women's Party, along with other progressive groups, held a Pride bike rally to call for the passage of the SOGIE bill. Advocates and members of the LGBT+ community staged a bike rally in Quezon City to urge the government to immediately pass the SOGIE equality bill. Gabriela Women's Party representative Arlene Brosa said that the bike rally sends a clear and colorful message to the public that any person, regardless of their sexual orientation and gender identity and expression, should not be subjected to any form of discrimination and violence. The bill seeking to penalize discriminatory practices based on someone's SOGIE remains pending at the House Committee on Women and Gender Equality. It's still too early for the opposition coalition Isambayan to unveil their bets for the 2022 election. That's according to political analyst Dindo Manhit. Speaking to One News Now, Manhit said Isambayan's effort may only be effective once they actually find a candidate that may be able to face whoever the current administration backs next year.
When they meet the objective of bringing people together to sit and to choose one candidate that can be the alternative to the candidate of President Duterte, that they can be effective and successful.
Meanwhile, when asked to comment on the criteria for voting in 2022, Manhit said there is no data yet, but they are currently running a study on voters which will be available next month.
We're hoping to get new data, which we are running this month of June, at least a year before the election. So I would be glad to answer that maybe by next month when a nationwide research is done.
Marikina City has reported its lowest active COVID-19 cases since the start of the pandemic. In an interview with One News Chiefs, Marikina City Mayor Marcy Teodoro said that their active cases is only at around 30. Despite this, Teodoro believes that vaccination should be ramped up more, along with implementing administrative and engineering controls to ensure the public's compliance to health protocols.
But kailangan talaga there's a new normal that should be followed, and we should be able to define it in our behavior and in terms of the infrastructure that we're looking into, and itong mga ganito, Lucy, I think. It's imperative, it's necessity that we return to what we call the new normal.
Marikina is also eyeing to vaccinate non-resident workers once their immunity target is met. Teodoro said they are aiming to inoculate 270,000 Mariqueños in order to achieve herd immunity in the city.
Definitely, there's a need to expand the capability of the LGUs to vaccinate more people on the ground. But as we've been discussing this among the LGUs, hindi pwedeng stand-alone lang eh. Kailangan talaga may synergy among the LGUs. In case that in the event that we will be able to finish our herd immunity target of 270,000. We've been discussing with Secretary Galvez and Secretary Vince that we will be vaccinating or inoculating workers who are not residing in Marikina but working here in the city.
The Senate Committee of the Whole will conduct a hearing into the government's utilization of the 82.5 billion budget allocated for its vaccination program. Senate President Tito Soto said the hearing will be in response to the request of some senators to know how the vaccine budget was used, as the Committee of the Whole will exercise its oversight right function. Senator Ping Lacson also said that they want a briefer on how the budget has been utilized or how much more money the government needs to complete its vaccine rollout. The Senate committee is due to hold the hearing on June 15. The group of 7 richest countries are seeking to counter China's influence by offering an infrastructure plan that could go up against President Xi Jinping's multi-trillion-dollar Belt and Road Initiative. The G7 is searching for a coherent response to the growing assertiveness of Xi following China's surging economic and military rise over the past 40 years. With this, U.S. President Joe Biden and other G7 leaders hope that their Build Back a Better World initiative will provide a transparent infrastructure partnership to close a $40 trillion gap in needy countries. Now, an official of the Biden administration clarifies that this is not just about confronting or taking on China, but offering a positive alternative based on their values and standards. However, there are no final plans yet on how will this work or the amount of capital it would allocate for the initiative. British Royal Air Force planes performed a flypast over Cornwall as G7 leaders continue their summit. After G7 wrapped up their plenary sessions on the second day, the members and their spouses enjoyed a beachside barbecue in Carbis Bay, hosted by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now, under clear skies, the Royal Air Force Red Arrows flew in formation, leaving streams of blue, white, and red corntail in the sky. The Philippines is now eyeing to launch its biggest Earth observation satellite to space. The Multispectral Unit for Land Assessment, or MULA satellite, is set to launch in 2023, 7 years after the first Filipino-built satellite, Diwata 1. The commercial-grade small satellite will be able to capture high-quality images of approximately 100,000 square kilometers of land area per day. Now, according to its project manager, John Lure Labrador, it will be like having our own astronaut in space. Some countries have started vaccinating children against COVID-19, but the World Health Organization has reservations on this. Let's watch this.
If you've been wondering about vaccination of children against COVID-19, this episode of Science in 5 is for you. Hello and welcome. I'm Bismita Gupta-Smith, and we are talking to WHO's Chief Scientist, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, today. Welcome, Soumya. Soumya, my first question to you is, at this time in June 2021, WHO is saying that vaccinating children is not a priority. Could you please explain why?
So the reason that today in June 2021, WHO is saying that vaccinating children is not a priority is because children, though they can get infected with COVID-19 and they can transmit the infection to others, they are at much lower risk of getting severe disease compared to older adults. And that is why when we started prioritizing people who should get the vaccination when there are limited supplies of vaccines available in the country, we recommend that we start with healthcare workers and frontline workers who are at very high risk of exposure to the infection. Also elderly, the people who have underlying illnesses that make them at high risk to develop severe disease, and start with those groups, protect them first, because we want to reduce the death rates that we're seeing today globally, and then gradually come down age-wise in the population till we get to children. And again, while there may be some children who are at higher risk of getting the severe disease because of some underlying illnesses or vulnerabilities or comorbidities, those children potentially could be prioritized for vaccines when they become available. But children as a group, form a much lower priority group.
Soumya, in future then, would WHO be recommending or looking at recommending vaccination for children? And when do we expect that?
So most vaccine companies and developers are currently doing studies in children, starting with the 12 to 18-year-olds and then progressively going down to younger and younger age groups. So as that scientific data comes out of the studies, the SAGE, which is the Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization, that actually develops vaccination policy for WHO, which is then adopted by many countries. The SAGE will look at this data as it comes and make recommendations on how the vaccine should be used in children, at what dosage, what interval, etc., whether there are any safety precautions or contraindications. All of that will be provided in detail. But again, to go back to the point of children, except for very few children who are at high risk, not considered to be a high priority right now because we have limited doses of vaccines. We need to use them to protect the most vulnerable. And also we have to remember the fact that it's not necessary that children must get the vaccine before they can go back to school. We've seen in many countries that schools have been kept open very successfully, and as long as the adults who are working in the school environment are vaccinated and adults in the community are getting the vaccine so that infection rates start dropping, then by following the other public health measures that have been advised for school safety, schools should be able to reopen safely.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.